Cybercrime is today worth $8 trillion, according to some of the most relevant estimates, coming only after the United States of America and China. That is the size and extent of cybercrime that we are talking today. And therefore, I think there is a need that we prioritize cybersecurity, and we brought it on the top of the agenda. Hello and welcome to this fireside chat, which promises to be very, very interesting. My name is Muqbil Ahmed. I am the executive editor at ETCSO, and to discuss cybersecurity in all its ramifications, I'm joined by two very good, very eminent technology and information security experts, and also very good friends. I have with me Dr. Yask Sharma, CISO IOCL, and Nitin Verma, MD India and SARC at CrowdStrike. So, starting with you, Nitin, my question first to you is, how do you see the security landscape, and what are the challenges that enterprises currently face today?
So if you see in the last 4 or 5 years, there has been two transitions that industry has witnessed. One, moving from if to when. If I would be breached to when I would be breached in here. And the second one is because of the first, is the security industry has moved from compliance-based security to risk-based security. And because of that, what has happened is the approach that we took was to have best of breed in our, or defense of depth in our enterprises. And this basically resulted in creating an average enterprise, creating about 45 different layers of security. And that kind of posted a huge challenge, especially in this dynamic threat environment, right, where we are witnessing sophisticated attacks on a daily basis, right? The siloed layer resulted in blind spots, right? The SecOps team find it pretty hard and challenging to kind of manage the security operations. And last but not the least, there are new vulnerabilities that are hitting the core technology stack on a weekly basis. So these are a couple of challenges that industry is facing. And because of this, what is happening is it's actually become a biggest hindrance for what is the need of the hour for the industry, which is to do more with less in here. So that's the landscape, I would say, talking to many customers.
Absolutely. So, two very pertinent points that you've made, Nitin, is that the dialogue has shifted now from if to when, and that there are a lot of siloed structures within enterprises which are hindering. So, according to you, what should be the ideal framework that enterprises should work in order to create that robust security posture?
So there is not a definite answer that this is the framework which will solve your problem. I think it's various approaches, which is very specific to every enterprise, right? But one of the things that is definitely required at this point of time is how do I protect my existing investments that I've already created, right? And that can happen if I'm able to basically integrate all of them together, right? And simplify. By doing integration, I'm able to simplify, automate, right, the entire landscape of the security solution, the layers that I have today. And this is where I believe as an OEM, right, as CrowdStrike, that with our XDR portfolio, we are able to achieve that for our customers today. This is how we are trying to solve the problem for the customers.
Wonderful. So, drawing from what you just said, that enterprises today have to contend with like more than 45 layers of siloed layers, and therefore there is this very pertinent need to simplify the security apparatus that they are dealing with. Excellent points coming from you. Now, drawing from that, we see that digital transformation has resulted in an explosion of data. I mean, if we were to talk about today, the world has already produced 74 zettabytes of data, which is huge, and it is expected that by 2025 the numbers would hit 200 zettabytes. So, in such a very complex and diverse landscape, how are you trying to really create that posture for yourself, and how are you dealing with such huge data sets?
Right, so dealing with the data set, I'll take the second part of the question first. I think that is more to do with the big data analytics. There are multiple tools, technologies that the companies are now exploring and deploying. I think, I'll just take you from the things that both of you mentioned. You started off with that 6 trillion number, the amount of cybercrime loss. Then you mentioned about, from if to when, right? I think all of these go into this, this whole, these are the ingredients based on which the final outcome is now derived. Now, I'll tell you why. This if to when is very important. When you talk about this data security, The point is that now we are not planning for an if scenario. All the security practitioners are planning for a when scenario, or should be planning for a when scenario. Basically the resilience or whatever term that you want to give. Essentially, the idea is that when you are breached, the work should still continue to go on. So that is one part. When we look at the security or the framework, or how we decide whether it is data or anything for that matter. And security is now no more limited to just the data part. While I still would want to believe that a lot of focus is going on or should be going on to the data part, the reality is that still the security is limited to the infra part, the network and collecting the regular talks that we have, taking the telemetry, trying to make some sense out of it. Unfortunately, the part that is missing, especially which is related to data, is the application security part, while we do a lot of stuff towards the infra and all. So just to answer the complex question that you have asked, what is being done to protect the data? I think the realization has happened that now we have to prepare in such a manner that yes, it is going to get breached. Yes, that data is going to get exfiltrated. Yes, there is going to be some loss. How do I operate in that environment, in that scenario? That's one. Two, I need to understand where the data is going, from where to where. That only if I understand that part would I be able to apply the security. And he very well mentioned some 58 or whatever layers of security, where siloed. That number, whether it is 45. For me, if it is anything more than 5, it is a problem, right? Like, whether it is 6 trillion or 60, or if my company is, then it is a problem for me. So that is what is important, realizing that and then stitching together the complete security around it. So that is, if I have been able to answer the complex question that you have asked.
So, Dr. Yask, you come from the manufacturing sector, and we already know that there is already a huge bit of discussion which happens around IT infra. You work in OT environments, and the OT environment in itself is beset with a lot of challenges, legacy and all of that. Would you like to shed some light on the challenges that you face there with respect to the OT environments that exist in enterprises in general and in yours in particular?
Right. So any typical cyber attack, the final motive would be either disruption or financial gains, primarily. True. Earlier, gone are the days when people wanted to show their supremacy, that, I've been able to breach a certain environment, so on and so forth. Now it is only these two. And, again, you mentioned those numbers. It's all talking about the financial gains. But if you look at, there is another aspect to it, which is the disruption part, in which the motive is not financial. And you look at the OT environment across the globe, what these nation-state attackers are doing, they're targeting only these, critical infra. The aim is only to disrupt, mostly, I would not say only, but mostly to disrupt, so much so that there have been losses of life also, maybe directly, indirectly. Now, when you operate in such an environment in which there are so many things at stake, apart from the financial losses, the company or the country's strategic reserves are at stake, the way the country works, and I'm talking at the country level, national level. Obviously, there has to be a lot more thought that needs to be given to it. Unfortunately, while this OT security has been around, or the concerns have been around, since 2010, I guess, when the first major attack surfaced, and everybody woke up to this idea that the OT can also be attacked. We are still not really, we have come to the pace, we still are not there where we should have been, given the 10-12 years of time that has passed. OT, the biggest challenge is that, in a typical IT environment, you have only two entities to face with, the customer and the solution provider, like, what Nitin brings to the table. Unfortunately, when it comes to the OT environment, it's not just the two of us. There is another third entity, which is the OT OEM. Everything is dependent on them, in a way. Therefore, the three people have to come onto the table, decide and arrive at a common framework protocol. And especially and I'm not trying to disrespect anyone or any of the OEMs. I'm just saying that the people who have been running this OT business for the past 30, 40 odd years, they do not want any kind of infringement happening in their area. That is why they are neither liking the customer coming into their area nor the security OEMs. So that brings a very peculiar challenge. Now, as an end user, I would want a certain protection to be deployed in my environment. I would also, get in touch with him, and he will probably bring the best of the solutions for me. Unfortunately, unless that person agrees and says that this is something that is going to work in my
my area, I am helpless at times. So that is one biggest challenge that I see in the OT environment. And to further complicate it, the outcome of an OT attack is far more grave and problematic than an IT attack. While people have started working on it, there are both from the OEM side, from the solution, from the end user customer side, the realization has happened at the topmost level. So yes, a promising start, I would say. But yes, the challenges are, and I have not talked about the legal compliances and all that. But that's another area in OT which is difficult area to navigate.
Well, you have summed it up really well that it's a promising start. And this brings us to the end of this fireside chat where we have discussed cybersecurity in all its ramifications, the challenges, particularly in the OT environments as well as in IT environments, the general security landscape, and the need to simplify things in cybersecurity, because as you rightly pointed out, that security today exists in so many diverse silos. It's important that there is a lot of consolidation happening on that front. With these words, I would really like to extend my gratitude to both of you for joining us today for this fireside chat.
Pleasure being
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you.